All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge Podcast. After winning the NFC North last year, the Minnesota Vikings were once again expected to be contending for the division crown this year, especially with Aaron Rodgers departing the Green Bay Packers. But just as the Vikings specialized in winning the close games in 2022, it's been the exact opposite for them here so far in 2023. Through three games this season, the Vikings are winless at 0-3 as they've lost their three contests by a combined 13 points. Whereas we saw the Vikings be able to make those key plays and those key moments last year in the fourth quarter, they've been able to do so far here in the early portion of this season. And of course, one thing that a lot of people are going to be talking about following the loss this past Sunday to the Chargers is that bad clock management by the Vikings at the end of that game. Now, on top of that, because the Vikings had their fair share of opportunities to beat the Chargers. The Chargers had a litany of penalties and injuries in that game. And of course, you had two winless teams coming into that contest. Both of them have found ways to lose games. And it was just a matter of who was going to overcome that. And I jokingly said the team who had the ball at the end might lose. And that team was the Minnesota Vikings for the most part. But you look at it, I mean, aside from issues on offense, I'm going to touch on that in a minute. Their pass defense was an issue last year. It still is. In the loss to the Chargers, we saw Keenan Allen have a field day for the Lightning Bolts, 18 catches and for 215, and then Mike Williams had 7 catches with for a buck 21 and a touchdown before he went out with the ACL injury that prematurely ended his season. Now, Justin Herbert is one of the young phenoms at quarterback in the National Football League. And of course, the Chargers definitely believe in him. We saw that big extension that they gave to him over the offseason. But I mean, he was in his zone this past Sunday afternoon 40 of 47 for 405 with three touchdown throws. Now, Kirk Cousins, had, his solid moments for the Vikings as well. But at the end of the day, still 50 pass attempts, 32 completions, 367 yards, three TDs, and a pick, while he was also sacked 4 times. And the much maligned running game of the Vikings did improve as they did have 130 yards on the ground, with 93 of those coming from Alexander Madison. But I don't care what anybody says. This team misses Dalvin Cook. And I really thought then, and I'm going to continue to say it, I think it was a mistake for the Vikings to flat out release Dalvin Cook. I mean, the thing is, you're talking about a Pro Bowl caliber back. He can do it for you as both a receiver and a runner. And I know that this is a pass happy NFL that we're talking about right now, but you still need that guy to go out there and make plays for you and run the football. Now, there are going to be some people that are going to say, well, Dalvin Cook's not lighting it up with the Jets. Obviously, he's not, due to the fact that the Jets really don't have a quarterback right now following the injury to Aaron Rodgers. But nonetheless, this Dalvin Cook, I really think, could have had a positive impact on this Vikings offense and this Vikings rushing game, which currently right now is 30th in the NFL. Now, you think about Kirk Cousins, and to me, some people might agree with me, some people won't. That's all good. Kirk Cousins is a 500 quarterback throughout his career once you take last year's big year out of the equation for the Minnesota Vikings. To me, I think Kirk Cousins is a guy that just puts up stats, and the Vikings are not going to win with him. I know, going back to when the Vikings first signed him, it was fresh off of them making the NFC Championship game when they lost to the Eagles, and they felt that they just needed that quarterback to get them over the hump. And the Vikings are no closer to winning a championship now than they were when they first got Kirk Cousins. Now, nobody is going to run away with the NFC North. That's a fact. I think all of these teams are flawed. Obviously, the Bears, out of all four of the teams in this division, the Bears, they're a wash. Okay. But you got the 2-1 Packers hosting the 2-1 Lions come Thursday. One of those teams is going to win. Obviously, somebody's going to lose. The winner is going to be 3-1, and the loser is going to be 2-2. And if you're the Vikings, and if you could somehow find a way to get your act together on Sunday against the Carolina Panthers, well, then guess what? You're 1-3, and you're theoretically right back in the mix because you'd be one game out of second place, two games out of first place, and regardless, you still got 4 games, a combined 4 games with both the Packers and the Lions. So there's an opportunity right there. But nonetheless, the Minnesota has to get their act together soon. Sunday's game at Carolina is not going to be easy. I don't think Bryce Young is going to play for the Panthers at quarterback. And if he doesn't, Carolina has themselves a solid veteran backup in Andy Dalton. And Andy Dalton showed that he could still play even in defeat this past Sunday for the Panthers against the Seattle Seahawks. You got Adam Thielen at wide receiver for the Carolina. I guarantee you he is circled this game on his calendar. And you know he definitely wants to ball out. So this is going to be a tough game for the Vikings. And then right after that, Minnesota hosts the defending Super Bowl champions in the Kansas City Chiefs in week number 5. So this right here, if they don't take care of their business on Sunday against the Panthers, they're probably going to start 0-5. They got the Bears on the road in week number 6, but then right after that, they're home for San Francisco in week 7, at Green Bay in week 8, at Atlanta in week 9, and then they host New Orleans in week number 10 in a contest that you would expect starting quarterback Derek Carr to be back for the Saints. So the bottom line is this: the expectations were there for the Minnesota Vikings coming into the season, but if they don't get their act together soon, this season could be over before it got started. I mean, most people, with the exception of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers themselves, probably did not expect the Vikings to go out there and lose in week number 1 at home to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And then I'll give them the benefit of the doubt as far as going to Philly in week number 2. That's a tough game right there. And again, like I said last week, you knew that these were going to be two desperate teams between the Chargers and Vikings, two playoff teams from last year, two desperate teams who did not want to start 0-3. And the Chargers were just slightly hungrier on this matter than the Minnesota Vikings were. So at the end of the day, you still got plenty of football left, yes, but this season could get away from the Vikings very quickly if they don't get their act together, and it's going to be tough. Minnesota has their issues running the football. They're one dimensional on offense, and they can't stop anybody with their passing game. The Vikings last year won a lot of close games, but right now they don't have that recipe in place. And until the Vikings figure it out and until they find a way to stop somebody defensively and have more balance on offense, this could be a very long season in the Twin Cities. So, folks, that is going to wrap it up. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank you for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. I want to take this time out to thank all of you fine folks out there for tuning in. And if you have not already, please feel free to subscribe to this channel. Now, if you're on the X, formerly known as Twitter, please feel free to follow me at 300 Pounds of Sports. And like I always say, if you follow me, it'll be my pleasure to follow you right back. There's also the sports discussion group on Facebook at the Sports Depot 365. Now, you can check it out, drop a line, and be a part of one of the better sports debating sites going on social media. So, once again, fine folks, my name is William Martin, and I am signing off. And I'm saying take care and have yourselves a wonderful day.